Most people spend their entire lives trying to earn more money without ever realizing that the true foundation of wealth begins in the mind. This audiobook is designed to take you beneath the surface of financial advice and into the hidden patterns, beliefs, and internal wiring that quietly shape your financial reality. The truth is that money does not respond to effort alone. It responds to mindset, identity, and the habits you build long before any dollar enters your hands. As you listen, you will be guided through the psychological blocks that keep most people stuck, the subtle ways society programs you to think small, and the powerful mental shifts that the wealthiest individuals use every day, often without even realizing it. This is not about quick fixes or overnight success. It is about learning to think differently, to perceive opportunities where others see limitations, and to understand the mental frameworks that support long-term prosperity. The concepts you are about to explore are rarely taught in schools, almost never shared at home, and often misunderstood even by high earners. Yet they hold the power to change the trajectory of your financial life. If you are willing to challenge your assumptions, release old beliefs, and build a mindset aligned with growth and abundance, what follows may become one of the most transformative financial journeys you have ever taken. Let this audiobook open the door to the wealth you have always been capable of creating, not just in your finances, but in your confidence, your decisions, and your future. Lasting wealth is not simply the result of hard work, luck, or even intelligence. It begins much deeper, in the mental blueprint that shapes how you understand money, how you respond to financial opportunities, and how you navigate uncertainty. In your life, this blueprint determines whether you build long-term stability or stay trapped in cycles of stress and scarcity. It influences how you think, what you prioritize, and how you interpret the events that happen around you. At its core, a mental blueprint is a set of beliefs, habits, emotional patterns, and expectations that operate in the background of your mind, guiding your choices often without you even realizing it. From early childhood, you absorb ideas about money from your family, environment, and culture. Maybe you grew up hearing that money is hard to earn, that wealth is only for a certain type of person, or that financial success requires sacrificing your happiness. These messages become internalized, shaping your identity and sense of what is possible. If you were raised around financial fear, you may have adopted a scarcity blueprint that leads you to cling to security, avoid risks, and feel guilty about wanting more. If you grew up around people who viewed money as a tool for opportunity, you may be more comfortable investing, planning, or taking bold steps toward your goals. Either way, your mental blueprint becomes the starting point for your financial journey, influencing every decision you make. To build lasting wealth, you first have to become aware of the blueprint you currently follow. Most people operate on autopilot, unaware that their beliefs are outdated or limiting. You may say you want wealth, but if your internal blueprint is based on fear or distrust, you will subconsciously sabotage opportunities that could help you grow. You might hesitate to negotiate your salary, avoid investing because it feels uncertain, or spend impulsively to relieve emotional stress. These patterns are not flaws, they are simply reflections of the internal map you have been using. Changing your financial life begins with examining that map and questioning whether it supports the kind of future you want. Another part of the mental blueprint behind lasting wealth is your relationship with delayed gratification. People who build long-term financial stability understand that wealth grows quietly over time, often through consistent habits rather than dramatic leaps. They learn to value the future more than temporary comfort. This doesn't mean living an uncomfortable or deprived life. It means understanding that small, intentional choices create powerful compounding effects. When your blueprint recognizes this principle, you naturally become more patient, more strategic, and more capable of seeing how today's decisions influence tomorrow's freedom. Your mindset around opportunity also plays a major role. Many people see obstacles where wealth builders see potential. When an unexpected setback occurs, someone with a scarcity blueprint might interpret it as a sign to retreat or give up. In contrast, someone with a growth-oriented blueprint views challenges as information, feedback, or a temporary hurdle. This difference in interpretation has a massive impact on long-term outcomes. The wealthy are not free from failure, they are simply better equipped to learn from it and move forward. Their blueprint reinforces resilience instead of fear, curiosity instead of shame, and resourcefulness instead of helplessness. A strong mental blueprint for wealth also includes a clear sense of personal responsibility. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for circumstances you cannot control. It means recognizing the power you do have to influence your direction. When you see yourself as capable of learning, growing, and adapting, you become less reactive to financial stress and more proactive in creating solutions. You stop waiting for the perfect moment or external approval. You begin trusting your ability to make decisions, even imperfect ones, and that trust becomes a foundation for every step you take. Another essential part of this blueprint is emotional regulation. Money triggers deep emotions: fear, excitement, guilt, pride, anxiety, and more. Without emotional awareness, financial decisions often become impulsive or avoidant. You might spend to feel better, avoid budgeting because it creates discomfort, or freeze when faced with uncertainty. Developing emotional intelligence around money is one of the most powerful shifts you can make. It guides you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting unconsciously. It allows you to approach money conversations without shame. It helps you maintain calm during financial ups and downs, which is one of the most valuable skills for building lasting wealth. Your mental blueprint also includes how you value yourself. Wealth is not just about financial strategies, it is about believing you deserve the outcomes you are working toward. If you consistently undervalue your skills or accept less than you are worth, it becomes difficult to build momentum. Wealth grows when you understand your own potential and act accordingly. This is why confidence, self-respect, and a sense of possibility are essential. They influence how you show up in your career, how you negotiate, how you pursue opportunities, and how you handle setbacks. A wealth-oriented blueprint empowers you to expand your identity, allowing you to see yourself as someone capable of creating abundance. Another component often overlooked is your environment. Your mental blueprint is reinforced or challenged by the people around you. If you spend your life surrounded by individuals who fear money, avoid growth, or view success with suspicion, it becomes harder to shift your own mindset. But when you place yourself among people who think bigger, take calculated risks, and encourage growth, your blueprint naturally expands. You begin absorbing new ways of thinking. You start believing that wealth is achievable and that you are capable of more than you previously imagined. Environment shapes mindset, and mindset shapes results. The blueprint for lasting wealth also emphasizes continuous learning. Financial systems, industries, and opportunities are always evolving. People with strong wealth mindsets commit to staying informed, curious, and adaptable. They read, ask questions, seek mentors, and embrace new knowledge instead of assuming they already understand everything. This willingness to learn keeps them ahead of challenges and helps them spot opportunities long before others notice them. It transforms wealth building from a struggle into an evolving skill set. Finally, a mental blueprint for lasting wealth rests on clarity. When you know what you want, why you want it, and how you plan to build it, your decisions gain direction. Clarity acts like a compass, guiding you through uncertainty and helping you avoid distractions. Without it, you float through life reacting to everything around you. With it, you take deliberate steps toward the future you envision. You move with purpose instead of fear. You invest with intention, you spend with awareness, and you build wealth that supports your life rather than defines it. Many people believe they stay broke because they do not earn enough, because opportunities never come their way, or because the economy is stacked against them. While these factors can create real challenges, they are rarely the true reason why most people never escape financial struggle. The deeper cause lies in hidden psychological traps that quietly shape decisions, habits, and beliefs around money. These traps operate silently in the background, influencing how you think, how you behave, and how you interpret financial events in your life. They are so familiar and so ingrained that most people never question them. As a result, they repeat the same patterns year after year, wondering why financial comfort always seems out of reach. One of the most powerful traps is the belief that money is something external, something controlled by governments, employers, or luck. When you internalize this belief, you subconsciously treat yourself as a passenger in your financial life rather than the driver. This mindset leads to passive behavior, waiting for the right moment, hoping for raises, wishing for a miracle. It prevents you from developing the skills, discipline, and awareness that wealth requires. This passive thinking is comfortable because it removes responsibility, but it also removes power. Until you recognize your ability to shape your financial direction, money will always feel like something that happens to you, rather than something you can influence. Another hidden trap is emotional spending. Many people use money to soothe stress, reward themselves, escape boredom, or cope with dissatisfaction. This habit begins subconsciously, and over time it becomes automatic. Money is no longer a tool for building a future, it becomes a temporary emotional fix. Even individuals who earn well fall into this trap because emotional triggers override logic. You may know you should save, invest, or plan, but the emotional rush of spending becomes stronger than long-term thinking. Without understanding the emotional patterns that drive your financial decisions, no budget or strategy will ever work for long. Fear is another trap that keeps people broke. Fear of making mistakes, fear of losing money, fear of judgment, and fear of uncertainty freeze people in place. Ironically, this fear often feels like caution or responsibility, but it is actually avoidance disguised as logic. People avoid investing because they fear losing, yet by avoiding investing, they lose the opportunity to grow. They avoid asking for a raise because they fear rejection, yet that fear traps them at the same income level for years. Fear convinces you that standing still is safe, but financially, standing still is the same as moving backward. A closely related trap is the belief that wealth requires extraordinary talent or intelligence. Many people assume rich individuals are smarter, more gifted, or more deserving. This belief creates a psychological barrier that prevents you from even trying. You start telling yourself that financial success is unrealistic for someone like you. When you believe wealth belongs to others, you unconsciously reject opportunities that could help you grow. This trap keeps you small, not because you lack potential, but because you have accepted a story that limits you. Another silent trap is the habit of focusing on short-term comfort rather than long-term gain. The human brain is wired to prioritize immediate rewards, which is why saving and investing often feel difficult even though you logically know they are good for your future. You may choose to buy something today because it feels gratifying, even if it steals from your future self. This trap is subtle because society reinforces it. Advertising encourages constant consumption, social media glorifies luxury, and cultural pressure pushes people to appear successful rather than build genuine stability. Without conscious effort to override short-term impulses, long-term wealth becomes nearly impossible. Then there is the trap of comparison. When you constantly compare your life to others, you create pressure to keep up. You spend based on what you see, not what you can afford. You chase an image of success rather than building true financial freedom. This trap drains your resources, distracts your focus, and keeps you trapped in cycles of debt or paycheck-to-paycheck living. Comparison steals clarity, and without clarity, you cannot build wealth. Another psychological trap is the belief that hard work alone creates wealth. Many people were taught that if they work tirelessly, money will eventually come. But in reality, wealth is built through decisions, not just effort. If your decisions are based on fear, lack of knowledge, or emotional impulses, no amount of hard work will compensate. Believing that effort alone is enough keeps you from learning about investing, improving skills, or exploring new paths. It gives you the illusion of progress without the results. Wealth requires strategy, awareness, and growth, not just labor. There is also the trap of ignoring money because it feels uncomfortable. Many people avoid checking their bank account, planning their finances, or understanding their debt because facing reality feels stressful. But avoidance never solves financial problems. It magnifies them. When you ignore your finances, you lose control over them. You stop making intentional decisions and drift further into habits that keep you broke. This trap creates a cycle of anxiety that grows stronger over time, making it even harder to break free. Another powerful trap is being surrounded by people with limiting beliefs about money. If the people around you constantly complain about bills, criticize wealthy individuals, fear financial decisions, or discourage ambition, their mindset becomes your mindset. The beliefs of your environment shape your sense of what is normal and possible. When you internalize these limiting beliefs, you adopt behaviors that match them. Without realizing it, you may begin to think small, aim low, or settle for less because that is what everyone around you does. One of the final hidden traps is the belief that change must be dramatic to matter. Many people think they need a new job, a huge raise, or a stroke of luck to transform their financial life. As a result, they overlook small, steady changes that could create powerful momentum. Wealth is built through small habits, saving consistently, learning continuously, making thoughtful decisions, and investing regularly. When you dismiss small steps as insignificant, you deprive yourself of the compounding effect that builds long-term stability. Waiting for a big change keeps you stuck, while taking small, consistent steps creates transformation over time. All these psychological traps operate quietly in your life. They shape how you think, how you react, and what you pursue. They create barriers that feel invisible, yet powerful enough to hold you back for years. But once you begin to notice them, you gain the power to change them. Like any mental pattern, these traps can be rewired through awareness, learning, and intentional action. When you begin shifting the way you think, your decisions change. When your decisions change, your habits change. And when your habits change, your financial life transforms in ways you may never have believed possible. The wealth gap that exists in the world is often explained through income levels, education, opportunity, or economic inequality. But long before any of those factors come into play, another gap emerges, one that begins inside the mind. Two people can grow up in similar environments, with similar resources, and still end up with completely different financial realities because their internal beliefs, expectations, and interpretations of life diverge. This mental divide is subtle, deeply rooted, and often invisible. It shapes how you see yourself, how you see money, and how you respond to the opportunities and challenges that come your way. The truth is that the wealth gap starts long before the first paycheck. It begins with the mindset you carry into adulthood. From a young age, you absorb attitudes about money without even noticing it. You watch how your parents talk about finances, how they react to bills, how they handle stress around money, and how they view people who have more or less than they do. These early experiences create an inner narrative about what money means, who gets to have it, and what kind of life is realistic for someone like you. If you grew up hearing that money is always tight, that it is dangerous, that it changes people, or that only certain individuals ever become wealthy, those messages settled into your subconscious. They quietly shape your expectations, even if you grow up wanting the opposite. Another aspect of the mental wealth gap comes from your sense of identity. Wealth building requires you to see yourself as capable, worthy, and able to grow. Many people never feel this way internally, even if they say they want financial success. If, deep down, you believe you are someone who struggles, someone who gets by but never gets ahead, or someone who is destined for an average life, this belief becomes a self-fulfilling pattern. You take smaller risks, aim for less, and avoid actions that could elevate your life. People with a wealth-oriented mindset learn to expand their identity. They see themselves as someone who can learn skills, make smart decisions, and adapt to challenges. This inner confidence becomes the foundation that supports every financial step they take. A major mental divide also lies in how people perceive opportunity. Someone with a poverty mindset sees most opportunities as risky, unrealistic, or meant for other people. They doubt their ability to succeed and overestimate the chances of failure. Someone with a wealth mindset sees opportunities as puzzles to figure out, skills to develop, or chances to grow. They understand that not every opportunity works out, but they trust their ability to learn from the process. This difference in interpretation drastically affects the options you pursue. Over time, the person who engages with opportunities, even imperfectly, naturally creates more pathways to wealth, while the person who avoids them stays stuck in the same place. Another mental gap forms around the concept of responsibility. People who stay financially stuck often see their circumstances as something largely controlled by outside forces. They blame the economy, family background, employers, or luck for their financial state. While external factors do matter, focusing on them removes your sense of agency. People with a wealth-focused mindset acknowledge obstacles but still take responsibility for their direction. They ask how they can improve, what they can learn, and how they can adapt. This mindset does not guarantee an easy path, but it creates a sense of power and possibility that fuels long-term progress. The mental wealth gap also shows up in a person's relationship with learning. Wealth builders treat learning as a lifelong practice. They read, seek advice, experiment with new skills, and remain open to change. They understand that the world evolves and that financial knowledge must evolve with it. On the other hand, many people who remain stuck believe they already know enough, or assume that learning about money is too complicated. They shy away from financial knowledge because it feels intimidating or overwhelming. This avoidance widens the gap, because financial growth requires understanding the tools and strategies that create stability. The willingness to learn becomes a defining factor in who moves forward and who remains stuck. Another part of the mental gap comes from emotional responses to money. People who feel anxious or overwhelmed by financial conversations often avoid making decisions. They may procrastinate on saving, investing, or budgeting because the emotions tied to money feel too heavy. This emotional avoidance leads to missed opportunities and continued instability. Wealth-minded individuals learn to manage their emotions rather than letting their emotions manage them. They develop emotional resilience, allowing them to stay calm during financial ups and downs and make decisions based on logic instead of fear. This stability becomes a powerful advantage over time. The mental wealth gap also shows up in how people perceive time. Those with a scarcity mindset want quick results. They look for shortcuts, fast wins, and immediate gratification. When they do not see instant success, they often give up or lose motivation. Wealth builders understand the long game. They realize that saving, investing, and growing skills take time, and they are willing to be patient. Their patience allows them to build habits that compound into real wealth. This difference in time perspective creates massive separation between those who build long-term stability and those who remain stuck in short-term cycles. Your environment also plays a significant role in the mental wealth gap. The people you spend time with influence your beliefs, expectations, and behaviors. If you surround yourself with individuals who complain about money, fear risk, or discourage growth, you absorb their attitudes. This environment reinforces limiting beliefs and makes financial progress feel unrealistic. On the other hand, being around people who think bigger, pursue goals, and talk about ideas rather than problems naturally elevates your mindset. You begin to adopt their confidence, their habits, and their perspective. Over time, this shift dramatically affects your financial outcome. Another part of the gap comes from how people view failure. Many individuals see failure as a sign that they are incapable or unlucky. This belief stops them from trying again. Wealth-minded individuals view failure as a form of data, something to learn from rather than fear. They expect setbacks as part of the journey. This resilience allows them to keep moving forward, while others get stuck in discouragement. Finally, the mental wealth gap is shaped by clarity and intention. People who stay stuck financially often move through life reacting to circumstances rather than intentionally shaping their direction. They lack a vision for the future, so their decisions remain scattered and inconsistent. Wealth builders have clarity. They know what they want, why they want it, and how their current actions support their future. This clarity gives meaning to the sacrifices they make and keeps them focused when distractions arise. Clarity is one of the strongest psychological dividing lines between those who build wealth and those who do not. When you begin understanding these internal differences, you can start to close the gap in your own life. Wealth begins in the mind long before it shows up in your bank account. By shifting your beliefs, strengthening your identity, embracing learning, managing your emotions, and cultivating long-term clarity, you reshape the mental foundation that influences every decision you make. Once the mental gap begins to close, the financial gap follows naturally because your actions begin to align with the life you want to create. Your beliefs act as the internal engine that drives every financial decision you make, whether you recognize it or not. They determine how you view money, how you earn it, how you spend it, and how you respond to opportunities or setbacks. These beliefs are not always loud or obvious. Many of them live quietly beneath your awareness, shaped by your upbringing, culture, personal experiences, and the stories you have repeated to yourself for years. Yet despite being invisible, they influence your bank account more directly than most people ever understand. When your beliefs support growth, confidence, and possibility, your financial life expands. When your beliefs are rooted in fear, doubt, or limitation, your financial life feels stuck, restricted, or chaotic. Understanding how beliefs shape your bank account is one of the most powerful steps toward building lasting wealth in your life. Most beliefs about money are formed in childhood long before you even touch a dollar. If you grew up hearing phrases like, "Money doesn't grow on trees," "We can't afford that," "Rich people are greedy," or "Money causes problems," then those messages may have quietly shaped your identity. You may have learned to associate money with stress, scarcity, or moral conflict. Even if you do not consciously agree with those messages today, the emotional imprint remains. These early beliefs can create internal conflicts, such as wanting financial success but feeling guilty for desiring it, or craving financial security but avoiding opportunities that require risk. These conflicts create self-sabotaging patterns that limit your financial progress, often without you realizing why. Your beliefs also determine your expectations about what is possible for you. If you believe that wealth is something only lucky or special people achieve, your mind will naturally filter out opportunities that could lead to financial growth. You may ignore investments because you assume they are only for wealthy people. You may avoid applying for higher-paying positions because you believe you are not qualified enough. You may stick to a familiar but limiting career path because you assume anything else is unrealistic. Your brain constantly looks for evidence that aligns with your beliefs, so if you believe you are meant to struggle, you will subconsciously focus on situations that reinforce that idea. Conversely, when you believe you are capable of growth and deserving of financial success, your mind becomes more open to learning, exploring, and acting on opportunities that previously felt out of reach. Another powerful way beliefs shape your bank account is through your relationship with risk. People who believe the world is dangerous, unpredictable, or unfair are far more likely to avoid financial risks altogether. They cling to safety even when safety is just another name for stagnation. They hesitate to invest, fearing loss more than they desire gain. They choose certainty over potential every time. Meanwhile, individuals who believe they have the ability to learn, adapt, and recover from mistakes view risk differently. They see it as part of growth rather than something to fear. This does not mean reckless gambling. It means trusting in their ability to navigate challenges. Their belief system allows them to take calculated risks that lead to financial expansion. Over time, these differences in belief compound into significant differences in wealth. Your beliefs also shape your financial habits. If you believe money is scarce and hard to get, you may develop a pattern of holding on to every dollar out of fear, which often leads to stagnation. Or you may spend impulsively because it temporarily relieves the anxiety that scarcity creates. If you believe money is a tool for opportunity, you are more likely to save, invest, and plan because you can see the long-term benefits. Beliefs act like a filter that determines which habits feel natural and which feel uncomfortable. Someone who believes wealth is a form of security will naturally develop habits that create stability. Someone who believes money brings stress may unconsciously avoid managing it, resulting in disorganization, debt, and overwhelm. Habits follow beliefs, and your habits ultimately shape your bank account. Another critical area influenced by beliefs is your sense of self-worth. The amount of money you believe you deserve directly affects how much you allow yourself to earn. If you believe your work has little value, you will accept low-paying jobs, avoid negotiating, and undercharge for your skills. If you believe you are unworthy of financial abundance, you may unknowingly push it away the moment it begins to appear. Some people sabotage job opportunities, overspend their savings, or shy away from leadership roles because deep down they do not believe they are meant to reach higher levels. When you strengthen your belief in your own worth, you become more comfortable pursuing income aligned with your capabilities, and your financial life begins to reflect that shift. Your beliefs also determine how you interpret financial challenges. When you believe setbacks are permanent or personal, a single mistake can spiral into defeat. A failed investment becomes a reason to avoid investing forever. A job loss becomes a narrative of inadequacy. A financial hardship becomes proof that you are unlucky or doomed to struggle. But when your beliefs support growth, resilience, and learning, financial challenges become information rather than condemnation. You adjust, adapt, and continue moving forward. The ability to recover and realign after setbacks is one of the greatest indicators of long-term financial success, and it is driven not by intelligence or luck, but by belief. Your beliefs even shape the people you surround yourself with. If you believe wealth is intimidating, uncomfortable, or morally questionable, you may avoid successful individuals who could inspire or educate you. If you believe growth is possible, you naturally gravitate toward people who encourage your progress. The beliefs you hold determine your environment, and your environment reinforces your beliefs. This cycle can either trap you or elevate you depending on the direction of the underlying belief. Another subtle way beliefs influence your bank account is through the stories you tell yourself. Stories like, "I'm bad with money," "I'll never be financially stable," or "I'm not the type of person who becomes wealthy," become self-fulfilling prophecies. Your brain looks for evidence to support the story you believe, and it ignores information that contradicts it. If you repeatedly tell yourself you are bad with money, you will avoid learning, avoid managing your finances, and ignore opportunities to improve. If you tell yourself you can learn anything, you become willing to grow. Changing your financial story changes your financial behavior, and when your behavior changes, your bank account follows. Ultimately, your beliefs shape every financial choice you make, from the career path you choose to your daily spending habits, your willingness to learn, your relationship with risk, your emotional reactions, and your long-term planning. When your beliefs are aligned with growth, confidence, and possibility, your financial life becomes a reflection of that alignment. When your beliefs are rooted in fear, scarcity, or self-doubt, your finances remain trapped in limitation. By examining and transforming the beliefs that govern your decisions, you gain the ability to reshape not just your mindset, but the reality of your financial future. The scarcity cycle is a pattern that keeps many people stuck in financial struggle, even when they are capable of much more. It is a loop of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that reinforce each other and create a sense of limitation in your life. Escaping this cycle begins with understanding how it forms, how it influences your decisions, and how it shapes the way you experience money. Scarcity is not just about lacking resources, it is about the belief that there is never enough, that opportunities are limited, and that your efforts will never be enough to create real change. This mindset becomes a lens through which you view every financial situation, and unless you break free from it, no amount of income or opportunity will ever feel secure or satisfying. In your life, scarcity often begins early. You may have grown up hearing conversations about bills, debt, and the difficulties of making ends meet. These experiences create a sense of financial insecurity that becomes embedded in your thinking. As you grow older, this insecurity turns into habits and assumptions that shape your behavior. You start to worry about spending even when you can afford things, or you feel guilty for wanting more because you associate ambition with greed or selfishness. Scarcity convinces you that you must hold on tightly to what you have, even when that fear stops you from growing. It becomes a psychological cage that limits your ability to make confident decisions and build long-term stability. One of the most damaging effects of scarcity is how it narrows your thinking. When you believe resources are limited, your mind becomes focused on survival rather than growth. You become more concerned with avoiding losses than pursuing opportunities. This leads to decisions that are reactive rather than strategic. For example, you might avoid investing because you fear losing money, even though investing is one of the most effective ways to build wealth. You might stay in a job that pays little because you fear the uncertainty of change. You might take on debt to feel immediate relief, even though it creates long-term stress. Scarcity makes your world feel small, and when your world feels small, your choices become smaller too. Escaping the scarcity cycle begins with noticing how it shows up in your daily life. You may feel anxious when you look at your bank account, even if the numbers are improving. You may avoid opening bills because you fear what you will see. You may hesitate to invest in yourself, whether through education, skills, or health, because you worry it will take away from what you have. These are signs that your relationship with money is driven by fear rather than intention. Awareness is the first step because you cannot change what you cannot see. Once you become aware of how scarcity influences you, you can begin shifting the patterns that no longer serve you. One powerful shift is learning to trust that you can create more. People trapped in scarcity believe that money only comes from a limited number of sources, such as a single job or a fixed salary. This belief creates dependence and limits your sense of possibility. But when you start seeing yourself as someone capable of generating new opportunities, your mindset expands. You begin noticing ways to increase your income, improve your skills, or build something meaningful. You feel less threatened by risks because you trust your ability to adapt. Scarcity dissolves when you realize that wealth is not just about managing what you have, It is about developing your capacity to create. Another key step in escaping scarcity is shifting your focus from short-term survival to long-term stability. Scarcity makes you prioritize immediate comfort over future security. You might spend impulsively to feel better, procrastinate on financial planning because it feels overwhelming, or avoid investing because the benefits are not immediate. To break this pattern, you must begin valuing your future self as much as your present self. This could mean saving consistently even if the amount is small, learning about money even if it feels unfamiliar, or making decisions based on where you want to be rather than where you currently are. When you begin thinking long-term, your choices naturally become more aligned with growth and abundance. Your environment plays a major role in breaking the scarcity cycle. If you are surrounded by people who constantly talk about financial struggle, complain about money, or discourage ambition, you will absorb their mindset without realizing it. Scarcity is contagious, but so is abundance. When you spend time around people who think bigger, take risks, and see possibility where others see limitation, your mindset begins to shift. You start to believe that financial growth is normal, rather than exceptional. You become more willing to learn, try new things, and step outside your comfort zone. Changing your environment is often one of the fastest ways to change your mindset. Another important part of escaping scarcity is changing your internal dialogue. The way you talk to yourself about money shapes your relationship with it. If you often think things like "I'll never get ahead," "I can't afford this," or "money is always stress," those thoughts become self-fulfilling prophecies. They limit your creativity, motivation, and confidence. Replacing these thoughts with more empowering ones is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about training your mind to see opportunities instead of obstacles. Thoughts like "I can learn this," "I can grow," or "I can find a solution" open the door to new possibilities. Over time, this shift transforms your attitude toward money. Building habits that support abundance is another essential step. Scarcity thrives on inconsistency, inconsistent saving, inconsistent planning, inconsistent decision-making. Abundance thrives on steady, intentional habits. This could mean tracking your spending, building a savings routine, investing regularly, or learning new financial skills. These habits create a sense of control and confidence that scarcity cannot coexist with. Each small step reinforces the belief that you are capable of managing and growing your financial life. Escaping scarcity also requires healing your emotional relationship with money. Many people carry shame, fear, or guilt from past financial mistakes. These emotions keep them stuck because they prevent them from trying again. Forgiving yourself for past decisions and viewing them as learning experiences rather than failures is a powerful way to break free. Money becomes less emotionally charged, allowing you to make clearer, more confident choices. When you detach your self-worth from your financial status, you gain the freedom to grow without fear of judgment. Over time, as you challenge scarcity-based beliefs, adopt new habits, surround yourself with growth-oriented people, and shift your emotional relationship with money, you begin to feel a sense of expansion rather than limitation. You start to make decisions based on possibility instead of fear. You begin seeing money as a tool rather than a threat. You stop surviving and start building. The scarcity cycle loses its power because you are no longer operating from fear, you are operating from intention, clarity, and confidence. This shift transforms your financial life not only externally but internally. You begin to live with a sense of openness and capability, stepping into opportunities that once felt impossible and building a future that aligns with your true potential. When people imagine the rich, they often focus on the external signs of success: the cars, the homes, the businesses, the investments. But the true difference lies deeper, hidden beneath the surface in the way wealthy individuals think, interpret opportunities, approach problems, and make decisions. The rich person's way of thinking is not about being born into privilege or possessing unusual intelligence. It is a mindset shaped by habits, beliefs, and perspectives that anyone can intentionally develop. Understanding this mindset in your own life can reveal the subtle mental shifts that separate those who build wealth from those who remain stuck. When you begin to think differently, your actions follow, and over time those actions create a very different financial reality. One of the defining characteristics of the rich mindset is the belief that money is a tool, not a goal. For many people, money feels like a destination, something to chase, something that determines their worth. But wealthy individuals see money as a resource designed to expand possibilities. They think in terms of building, multiplying, and leveraging, rather than earning and spending. This shift changes everything. When you view money as a tool, you begin to make decisions that create long-term benefits instead of temporary satisfaction. You start looking for ways to use your time, energy, and skills more efficiently. You begin to think in terms of systems rather than short-term survival. Another vital aspect of the rich person's mindset is the ability to detach emotions from financial decisions. Rich thinkers understand that emotions can cloud judgment, especially fear, excitement, guilt, or pressure. They train themselves to analyze decisions rationally, focusing on long-term outcomes rather than immediate feelings. This does not mean they lack emotion. It simply means they do not let emotions control their strategy. When facing an investment, a major purchase, or a career opportunity, they pause, evaluate, and decide based on data and logic. This discipline helps them avoid impulsive spending, panic-driven selling, and emotionally motivated mistakes that keep many people trapped in financial instability. Wealthy individuals also think differently about risk. Most people view risk as something dangerous and to be avoided. Rich thinkers view risk as something to be understood, managed, and used. They know that every meaningful opportunity carries some level of uncertainty, but instead of running from it, they assess it. They evaluate potential outcomes, plan for challenges, and make informed decisions. Instead of asking what could go wrong, they also ask what could go right. This balanced perspective allows them to take calculated risks that lead to growth instead of staying frozen by fear. Over time, their comfort with risk creates opportunities that compound into significant gains. Another key difference is how the wealthy approach learning. They do not believe they already know everything they need. Instead, they remain curious, open-minded, and committed to growth. They invest in books, mentors, courses, and experiences that expand their knowledge. They surround themselves with people who challenge their thinking rather than those who reinforce limitations. Their mindset is built on the understanding that every new skill, every bit of information, and every perspective can help improve their decisions. This commitment to lifelong learning becomes a competitive advantage, especially in a world that changes rapidly. When you embrace this attitude, you begin to view challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to learn something that pushes you forward. Wealthy thinkers also understand the importance of focusing on value rather than time. Many people trade hours for money, believing income is limited by the number of hours they can work. Rich thinkers focus on creating value that scales beyond their time. They build systems, assets, and strategies that produce income even when they are not actively working. This could be a business, an investment, a skill that commands high fees, or intellectual property that generates revenue repeatedly. This perspective allows them to escape the limits of time-based income and move toward financial freedom. When you begin to think about how you can create value instead of just earning wages, you open the door to opportunities that elevate your financial potential. Another powerful habit of wealthy thinkers is the ability to delay gratification. They understand that short-term pleasures often sabotage long-term gains. Instead of spending impulsively, They ask themselves whether a decision contributes to their future or only satisfies a momentary desire. They invest their money before they spend it. They prioritize actions that move them toward their goals. This discipline may seem simple, but it creates a massive difference over time. While others spend every increase in income, the wealthy use increases to accelerate their growth. Their patience becomes one of their most effective wealth-building tools. Rich thinkers also avoid the trap of blaming circumstances. They take responsibility for their financial direction, even when life brings challenges. This does not mean they ignore unfair situations or pretend hardship does not exist. It means they focus on what they can control rather than what they cannot. They ask themselves how they can adapt, what they can learn, and where they can improve. This sense of ownership empowers them to take action instead of feeling powerless. When you shift from blaming to owning, you reclaim your ability to change your situation no matter where you start. Another important quality is long-term thinking. Wealthy individuals rarely fixate on immediate outcomes. They plan years into the future, make decisions based on where they want to be, and allow time to work in their favor. This mindset helps them avoid unnecessary stress and stay focused on their broader vision. They understand that meaningful wealth is built through consistency, strategy, and patience. They are not discouraged by slow progress because they know slow progress compounds into extraordinary results. When you adopt long-term thinking, your choices become more intentional, and your actions align with where you want to go rather than where you are now. Wealthy thinkers also excel at solving problems. Instead of being discouraged by challenges, they look for solutions, opportunities, or lessons. Problems do not feel like dead ends. They feel like puzzles to be solved. This attitude makes them resilient, resourceful, and creative. It also allows them to identify opportunities hidden beneath the surface of adversity. When you view problems this way, you become more confident in your ability to navigate financial challenges and move forward stronger than before. Finally, rich thinkers believe there is always more to learn, more to earn, and more to create. They do not view wealth as a fixed amount or a limited resource. They see abundance rather than scarcity. This belief fuels ambition, inspires creativity, and keeps them moving even when others stop. It allows them to see potential where others see limits. And that perspective becomes a powerful engine for financial growth and personal expansion. Turning money into a tool rather than allowing it to become a master is one of the most important shifts you can make in your financial life. For many people, money becomes a source of stress, fear, insecurity, or even identity. It dictates what they can or cannot do, how they feel about themselves, and how they make decisions. When money becomes a master, it quietly controls emotions, choices, and long-term direction. But when you learn to treat money as a tool, you reclaim your power. You gain clarity, confidence, and freedom in a way that changes not only your finances, but also your sense of self and your overall quality of life. Most people grow up with the idea that money is something to chase, something to clutch, or something to worry about constantly. This mindset is usually learned unconsciously from family, culture, or personal experiences. If money was always scarce, you may have developed the belief that you must hold tightly to every dollar you earn. If money was a source of conflict in your home, you may associate it with stress or fear. If you were taught that money is the measure of success, you might link your self-worth to your income. Each of these beliefs binds you to money in a way that makes it feel like it has power over you. Money becomes the master, and you become its servant. Turning money into a tool begins with understanding its true purpose. Money is neutral. It is not good or bad. It is simply a resource that amplifies the decisions you make and the values you hold. It gives you options, flexibility, and the ability to shape your life intentionally. When you begin seeing money as a supportive resource rather than an emotional symbol, you stop making choices based on fear and start making them based on purpose. Instead of asking whether you have enough to live, you begin asking how you can make your money work for the life you want to create. A major part of using money as a tool is learning how to separate emotion from decision. Emotions like fear, excitement, guilt, and shame often drive financial behavior more strongly than logic. You might overspend to feel better, avoid investing because you fear loss, or cling to money because you feel uncertain about the future. These emotional reactions give money control. When you develop emotional awareness, you begin recognizing your triggers and patterns. You learn to pause before making decisions, evaluating whether your choices support your long-term goals. This simple shift reduces anxiety and builds trust in your own ability to manage your finances in a healthy, intentional way. Another key step in turning money into a tool is creating a clear sense of direction. When you do not have goals or a vision, money tends to slip through your fingers because it has no destination. Without direction, you may spend reactively based on your mood, your environment, or short-term desires. When you define what financial freedom means to you, whether it is stability, independence, experiences, or generational wealth, your decisions become clearer. You stop using money to fill emotional voids and start using it to build something meaningful. Money becomes a means, not an end. Budgeting and planning are often misunderstood as restrictive, but when money is a tool, planning becomes empowering. A well-structured financial plan is like a blueprint that tells your money where to go rather than wondering where it went. It gives you clarity and control. It helps you see opportunities instead of obstacles. It frees mental space, allowing you to focus on what matters instead of constantly worrying about what might happen. Planning transforms money from a source of stress into something that supports your growth. Another important aspect of treating money as a tool is learning how to make it work for you instead of working endlessly for it. This is where investing comes in. Many people avoid investing because it feels intimidating or risky, but that fear often comes from misunderstanding. Investing is not gambling, it is the process of using money to create more value over time. When your money grows while you sleep, travel, or work on other goals, you experience the true power of money as a tool. You no longer depend solely on your labor to create financial security. You build systems and habits that multiply your income, giving you freedom instead of pressure. Using money as a tool also means recognizing that money should support your well-being, not determine it. Many people become trapped in cycles of overworking to earn more, believing that more income will bring happiness, safety, or self-worth. But when money becomes a tool, you begin to see that your time, health, relationships, and peace of mind are equally valuable resources. You make decisions based on balance rather than obsession. You learn to create a life that is abundant in more ways than just financially. Another part of this transformation involves letting go of societal expectations. Society often pressures people to spend in ways that signal success, luxury items, status symbols, or experiences meant to impress others. When money is your master, these expectations shape your behavior. You spend to fit in, to feel validated, or to avoid judgment. But when money becomes your tool, you spend based on your values, not someone else's standards. You prioritize what brings meaning, fulfillment, and long-term benefit. You stop chasing appearances and start building authenticity. Turning money into a tool also requires building a healthy relationship with earning. Instead of seeing income as something you must grind endlessly for, you begin exploring how you can increase your value, expand your skills, and create income streams that align with your strengths. You shift from survival to strategy. You start thinking about how to build a sustainable financial foundation that grows with you. This mindset frees you from the fear of scarcity and helps you approach opportunities with confidence. Another powerful shift comes from understanding boundaries. When money is your master, you may find yourself saying yes to things you cannot afford, lending money out of guilt, or spending to avoid uncomfortable conversations. Setting financial boundaries protects your well-being and your future. It helps you make decisions from strength rather than pressure. Boundaries reinforce the idea that you are in control of your financial direction, not at the mercy of external demands. Finally, turning money into a tool means embracing long-term thinking. Wealth is not built through impulsive choices or short bursts of discipline. It is built through consistent habits, steady improvement, and intentional decisions. When you adopt a long-term perspective, you gain patience, you gain wisdom, you stop chasing quick fixes and start building a foundation that will support you for the rest of your life. You learn that money is not the goal, but the resource that helps you reach your goals. And in that shift, you reclaim your power, reshape your reality, and create a life where money works for you rather than the other way around. Rewiring your brain for abundance begins with understanding that your mind has been shaped by years of habits, beliefs, and emotional patterns that influence how you experience money and opportunity. Most people operate from mental programming they never chose. They inherit ideas about what is possible, what they deserve, and how the world works. And these ideas silently govern their decisions. To create abundance in your life, you must consciously reshape this programming so it supports growth, confidence, possibility, and long-term wealth. This is not about magical thinking or pretending problems do not exist. It is about training your brain to recognize opportunities, reduce fear-based reactions, and build the mental environment where success can grow. The first part of rewiring your brain is becoming aware of your current default patterns. Everyone has mental loops that trigger automatic behaviors. If you grew up around financial stress, you might habitually expect money to run out. If you were taught that rich people are greedy, you might subconsciously avoid becoming wealthy even if you say you want it. If you experienced scarcity, you might cling to every dollar, avoiding investments that could help you grow. These patterns feel like truth, but they are simply familiar thoughts your brain has repeated for years. Recognizing these loops is the first step to changing them. Abundance begins when you stop accepting these mental habits as unchangeable and start seeing them as old programming that no longer serves your future. Once you understand your existing patterns, the next step is to challenge them. Your brain loves predictability. Even unhealthy beliefs feel comfortable because they are familiar. This is why many people stay stuck in the same financial behaviors year after year. To rewire your brain, you must disrupt the cycle. When a scarcity thought appears, such as believing you cannot afford something or fearing money will disappear, you pause and question the assumption. Is the fear based on fact or old conditioning? Is the belief actually true or just an emotional echo from the past? This questioning interrupts the automatic pattern and creates space for a new perspective. Over time, this practice teaches your brain not to accept fear or limitation as default reality. Another crucial part of rewiring the mind for abundance is strengthening your focus. Your mind expands what you consistently pay attention to. If you focus on bills, problems, competition, and lack, your brain becomes trained to look for more of the same. But if you focus on possibilities, solutions, opportunities, and growth, your brain begins to filter the world differently. This is not denial, it is intentional attention. Abundance thinkers train their minds to look for what can be gained, rather than what might be lost. They see options where others see obstacles. They build momentum because their attention fuels their actions, and their actions shape their outcomes. Rewiring your focus rewires your results. Visualization is another powerful tool for abundance. When you visualize a goal, your brain activates the same neural pathways it uses when you are actually doing the task. This creates familiarity, which reduces fear and increases confidence. Visualization also strengthens your belief in your ability to succeed. Instead of seeing wealth as a distant dream for other people, your mind begins to accept it as possible for you. This shift in self-perception is essential because your actions always align with your identity. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, your choices will reflect that identity. But if you see yourself as someone who grows, learns, and attracts opportunities, your behaviors will naturally support that vision. Another component of rewiring is emotional mastery. Abundance requires the ability to respond rather than react. Financial decisions often trigger strong emotions: fear during downturns, excitement during highs, shame during mistakes. If you let emotions control your choices, scarcity becomes a self-perpetuating cycle. Rewiring your brain involves learning to observe your emotions without letting them dictate your behavior. Instead of panicking during uncertainty, you pause, breathe, and respond with clarity. Instead of impulsively spending to escape stress, you address the root emotion. Emotional regulation strengthens your decision-making power, and consistent smart decisions are the foundation of abundance. Your habits also play a major role in rewiring your brain. Habits create neural pathways, and the more you repeat a behavior, the stronger that pathway becomes. If you constantly worry about money, that becomes your brain's default route. If you practice gratitude, awareness, saving, reading, or investing regularly, those become your new defaults. Abundance is not built on one dramatic shift. It is built on small, repeated choices that gradually reshape your mental landscape. Each time you choose learning instead of avoidance, clarity instead of chaos, or growth instead of fear, you strengthen the pathways of abundance in your mind. Another aspect of rewiring your mind is adopting an identity of worthiness. Many people subconsciously believe they do not deserve wealth, comfort, or freedom. These beliefs often come from childhood messages, past failures, or societal conditioning. When you feel unworthy, you undermine your own progress through self-doubt, procrastination, or self-sabotage. To rewire your brain, you must begin affirming your value. You build an identity of someone who is capable, deserving, and ready for growth. This shift is not superficial. It requires looking at the deeper beliefs that have been holding you back and replacing them with beliefs that support your expansion. Surrounding yourself with abundance-minded people is another powerful way to rewire your brain. Your environment shapes your beliefs more than you realize. If you constantly hear negativity, fear, or limitation, your brain absorbs those messages and repeats them internally. But when you expose yourself to people who think big, take risks, and pursue growth, your brain begins adapting to that environment. Abundance becomes normal instead of foreign. Your goals feel achievable instead of unrealistic. Your mind aligns with the energy of possibility. Finally, rewiring your brain for abundance requires patience and consistency. Mental patterns do not change overnight because they were built over years. But with repetition, awareness, and deliberate practice, your brain begins forming new pathways that support your highest potential. You start making choices that align with your future, not your past. You respond to challenges with clarity instead of fear. You view money as a tool instead of a stressor. You recognize opportunities that were invisible to you before. You develop the confidence to pursue bigger goals because your brain is no longer trapped in the old patterns of scarcity. Long-term thinking is one of the most powerful forces in your financial life, yet it is rarely practiced and even less understood. Most people operate in a mental space dominated by urgency, immediate gratification, and short-term survival, even when they aren't truly in crisis. This short-term mentality leaks into every financial decision, shaping how you save, spend, invest, and plan. But the people who build enduring wealth have trained themselves to think far beyond the moment. They understand that the future is not some distant fantasy, but the direct result of the choices made today. When you develop long-term thinking, your entire relationship with money begins to transform because you stop focusing on what feels good right now and start building what will sustain you for years to come. Long-term thinking requires shifting your attention away from the immediate noise of life and toward the future you want to create. This shift often feels uncomfortable because the human brain is wired to prioritize short-term rewards. This instinct was useful when survival depended on reacting quickly to danger or scarcity. But in modern life, this instinct often works against you, pulling you toward impulsive spending, avoidance of planning, and emotional decision-making. To embrace long-term thinking, you must first become aware of the internal impulses that push you toward the short term. These impulses show up when you buy something to feel better, when you avoid saving because it reduces your spending power today, or when you hesitate to invest because the benefits won't appear immediately. Long-term thinking begins by recognizing these impulses and choosing not to be controlled by them. One of the most important aspects of long-term thinking is understanding the power of compounding. Small actions repeated consistently over time create results far larger than their individual pieces. Whether it is investing a small percentage of your income, improving your skills, or building financial habits, the effects multiply with time. But compounding only works if you give it time. This is where many people struggle. They want fast rewards, quick wins, and immediate feedback. When results don't appear instantly, they lose motivation and revert to old habits. Wealthy individuals, however, trust the process of incremental progress. They understand that consistent effort over years builds outcomes that look impossible at the beginning. Long-term thinkers focus on direction rather than speed, knowing that the journey itself is what creates lasting financial freedom. Long-term thinking also shifts the way you evaluate opportunities. Instead of asking what brings the fastest reward, you begin asking what brings the highest value over time. This mindset influences how you choose jobs, how you invest, how you handle setbacks, and how you prioritize your goals. A short-term thinker might choose a job with immediate high pay but no future growth, while a long-term thinker chooses a path that may start smaller but leads to far greater income and stability. A short-term thinker might ignore developing new skills because they don't pay off immediately, while a long-term thinker sees education and self-improvement as investments in their future earning potential. This shift in perspective opens doors that short-term thinkers never even notice. Another major element of long-term thinking is learning to delay gratification. This doesn't mean depriving yourself or living miserably. It means understanding the difference between what adds value and what distracts you. When you practice delayed gratification, you become more discerning about your spending. You begin evaluating purchases based on whether they bring long-term satisfaction instead of short-term pleasure. This discipline builds a strong foundation for saving, investing, and planning. It also reduces the emotional roller coaster that often comes from impulsive financial choices. Over time, delaying gratification strengthens your self-control and increases your confidence in your ability to shape your financial destiny. Long-term thinking also changes how you handle setbacks. When you think only in the short term, a mistake feels catastrophic. A small financial loss feels like failure. A job rejection feels like a roadblock. But long-term thinkers view setbacks as temporary events, not final outcomes. They understand that success is built through cycles of learning, adjusting, and continuing forward. This mindset makes you more resilient, more patient, and more willing to take calculated risks. Instead of giving up or shrinking your goals, you analyze what went wrong, learn from it, and use that knowledge to make better decisions moving forward. This resilience is one of the key reasons why long-term thinkers eventually reach rewards that short-term thinkers never experience. Another crucial part of long-term thinking is planning. When you create a clear vision for your future, every financial choice becomes easier. You no longer drift or make decisions based on emotion because you have a direction. Planning doesn't mean predicting every detail. It means setting intentions and making consistent progress toward them. It means mapping out your goals, your priorities, and the habits required to reach them. Planning also creates accountability. You see the connection between your present actions and your future outcomes. This awareness guides your decisions and keeps you aligned with your goals, even when distractions tempt you. Long-term thinking influences the relationships you build as well. People who think long-term tend to form deeper, more supportive connections, especially with others who share similar values. They understand the importance of a network, mentorship, and community. These relationships create opportunities, guidance, and inspiration that compound over time, just like financial investments do. Surrounding yourself with long-term thinkers reinforces your mindset and keeps you focused on growth. It also protects you from being influenced by individuals who prioritize short-term pleasure or instant gratification at the expense of long-term stability. One of the final pieces of long-term thinking is understanding that money is just one part of the larger picture of your life. When you think long-term, you begin valuing your time, health, emotional well-being, and personal growth as part of your wealth. You see that financial success is meaningless without the stability and clarity to enjoy it. This broader view helps you make balanced decisions. It prevents burnout, stress, and unhealthy sacrifice. It reminds you that life is not just about accumulating money, but about building a fulfilling future that supports your values and dreams. By embracing the power of long-term thinking, you create a foundation that transforms every part of your financial life. You shift from reacting to creating, from surviving to building, from wishing to acting. You no longer chase quick fixes or temporary rewards, because you understand that true wealth comes from consistency, patience, and vision. When you train yourself to think long-term, you give yourself the greatest advantage possible in your financial journey, the ability to build a future that reflects your highest potential without being pulled off course by the distractions of the moment. Your relationship with risk shapes nearly every financial decision you make, often far more than income, opportunity, or even knowledge. Throughout your life, your responses to uncertainty, loss, and change determine whether you grow financially or remain stuck in familiar patterns. Risk is not just a mathematical calculation, it is an emotional experience shaped by your upbringing, past failures, cultural messages, and personal fears. Understanding how you interpret risk is essential for building wealth because every meaningful financial step involves some degree of uncertainty. Whether it is investing, starting a business, negotiating pay, or learning new skills, your comfort with risk becomes the invisible force that drives or limits your progress. Most people learn from an early age to associate risk with danger. If you grew up hearing warnings about losing money, failing, or stepping outside your comfort zone, you may have internalized the idea that playing it safe is the smartest choice. This mindset creates a cautious relationship with money, where security feels more important than growth. You may avoid trying new financial strategies, stick to what feels familiar, or choose low-reward paths simply because they feel predictable. The problem with this approach is that financial safety is often an illusion. Inflation rises, markets shift, industries evolve, and opportunities change. Protecting yourself by avoiding all risk can quietly erode your financial potential over time. Wealthy individuals tend to view risk differently. They see it as a tool rather than a threat. Instead of focusing only on what might go wrong, they pay equal attention to what could go right. This balanced perspective allows them to make informed choices without being paralyzed by fear. They understand that risk cannot be eliminated, only managed. They invest time in learning, researching, and preparing so they can make decisions with clarity rather than emotion. Their relationship with risk is based on confidence in their ability to adapt, not confidence in the outcome itself. This difference in mindset creates a massive gap in financial results over time. Another important part of your relationship with risk is how you interpret failure. If you see failure as evidence that you are not capable or that you made a terrible decision, you will likely avoid taking risks in the future. But if you view failure as information, feedback, and a natural part of growth, you become more willing to try again. People who build wealth rarely succeed on the first attempt. They learn through setbacks, adjust their strategies, and keep moving forward. Their resilience comes from understanding that failure is not a sign to retreat, but a chance to improve. This mindset shift can transform your financial life because it removes the fear of imperfection that keeps many people stuck in place. Emotion plays a huge role in risk perception as well. When fear dominates your decisions, it can influence you to act impulsively, avoid opportunities, or cling to false safety. Emotional reactions can make small risks feel enormous and manageable challenges feel overwhelming. To build wealth, you must learn to recognize your emotional triggers. Notice when fear is speaking louder than logic. Notice when past experiences are influencing present choices. Developing emotional awareness does not eliminate fear, but it gives you the ability to act with intention instead of reacting automatically. It helps you move from avoidance to thoughtful evaluation. Education is another factor that shapes your relationship with risk. When you lack knowledge about money, investing, or financial systems, everything feels risky. Uncertainty grows in the absence of understanding. However, when you learn how money works, risk becomes clearer and less intimidating. Knowledge gives you confidence to make measured decisions. It allows you to differentiate between reckless behavior and calculated steps. Many people who appear naturally confident with risk are not fearless, they are simply informed. They understand the landscape, the possibilities, and the consequences. This clarity reduces anxiety and increases their ability to take action. Your environment also influences your risk tolerance. If you spend time with people who fear change, avoid growth, or criticize ambition, you may adopt their mindset without realizing it. Conversely, if you surround yourself with individuals who embrace learning, experimentation, and long-term thinking, you begin to see risk as part of progress. Social influence is powerful because it normalizes certain behaviors. When growth is normal, risk becomes less intimidating. When fear is normal, risk becomes something to avoid. Changing your environment can transform your mindset even before you consciously change your habits. Another important part of your relationship with risk is how you balance short-term comfort with long-term gain. Taking risks often requires temporary discomfort, learning new skills, saving aggressively, investing consistently, or stepping into unfamiliar roles. Many people avoid these challenges because they value immediate ease over future rewards. But wealth building almost always requires short-term sacrifice. This does not mean living in hardship, it means being willing to trade temporary discomfort for long-term freedom. When you understand that discomfort is part of growth, you become more open to risks that serve your future rather than just your present. Your beliefs about yourself also determine how you handle risk. If you see yourself as someone capable, resourceful, and adaptable, you are more likely to take chances because you trust your ability to recover if things go wrong. If you doubt your capabilities, you will avoid risks because you do not believe you can handle the consequences. Self-image is one of the most powerful financial tools you have. Strengthening your self-belief increases your willingness to take steps that expand your income, skills, and opportunities. Another piece of this puzzle is the ability to evaluate risk logically rather than emotionally. People often exaggerate risks in their minds, imagining worst-case scenarios far more dramatic than what would realistically happen. Wealthy individuals practice evaluating risks rationally. They ask questions, calculate probabilities, assess potential gains, and consider long-term outcomes. This logical approach makes risk feel manageable rather than overwhelming. You can cultivate the same habit by slowing down, gathering information, and separating facts from fears. The more objective you become, the more freedom you gain in your financial decisions. Ultimately, your relationship with risk influences everything you do with money. If you fear risk, you may stay in jobs that limit your potential, avoid investing, delay major decisions, or settle for less than you are capable of achieving. If you embrace risk thoughtfully, you open doors to growth, opportunity, and financial expansion. The goal is not to become fearless, but to become wise. Risk will always be part of life, but how you respond to it determines whether you remain stuck or move forward. When you learn to see risk as a tool for growth rather than a threat to avoid, you reclaim control over your financial future and begin building the kind of wealth that comes from courage, clarity, and intention. Many people assume that the amount they earn automatically defines the level of wealth they will achieve. But income alone is only one piece of the financial puzzle. Wealth is created not by what comes in, but by what stays, what grows, and how intentionally you manage, multiply, and direct your resources. You can earn a high salary and still live paycheck to paycheck if your mindset, habits, and financial systems are not aligned with long-term stability. And you can earn a modest income yet build real wealth over time if you understand how money works, how to manage it wisely, and how to make it serve your future. The misunderstanding between income and wealth is one of the biggest traps that keeps people stuck in cycles of struggle, frustration, and the feeling of not making progress no matter how hard they work. Income is temporary and flows through your life. Wealth is structural and stays with you. Income reflects the value you trade your time for, but wealth reflects the value you build independent of your time. When you focus only on income, your financial life becomes dependent on constant effort, constant hours, and constant external conditions. As long as you are trading time for money, your earning abilities remain limited by your schedule, your employer, or your energy. But when you focus on wealth, you shift your attention toward assets, ownership, growth, and long-term strategy. The difference is that income pays your bills today, while wealth creates freedom for tomorrow. Another reason income does not equal wealth is lifestyle inflation. As most people begin to earn more, they upgrade their spending at the same pace. What was once a luxury starts to feel like a necessity. The nicer car, the bigger apartment, the frequent eating out, the better clothes, the more expensive hobbies all seem completely justified because the money is there. But as spending expands to match income, nothing is left to build wealth. This cycle creates the illusion of progress without creating financial security. You feel successful externally while remaining vulnerable internally. Without intentional control over spending, higher income simply becomes higher consumption. Wealth, on the other hand, grows through what you keep and invest: savings, investments, ownership in businesses, real estate, and other assets. Build a foundation that continues working even when you are not. Wealth requires the discipline to live below your means, the intelligence to make informed financial decisions, and the patience to let growth compound over time. This is why two people earning the same income can live completely different lives in 10 years. One may be struggling with debt and financial pressure, while the other has accumulated assets and stability. The difference does not come from earnings alone, but from how each person thinks about and manages their money. Another essential aspect is that income is often tied to external systems, while wealth is tied to internal skills. Your job, salary, or business revenue can change based on market conditions, economic shifts, or organizational decisions you cannot control. Wealth, however, grows from knowledge, discipline, awareness, and financial literacy, skills that remain with you regardless of your job or economic environment. When you learn to manage money well, invest wisely, and identify opportunities, you carry those skills into every stage of your life. Wealth becomes a mindset and a set of abilities, rather than an accidental result. The belief that income equals wealth also prevents people from building multiple streams of income. When you rely solely on one source, you remain financially fragile. A single job loss, a medical issue, or a market downturn can disrupt your entire financial life. Wealth is created when you diversify income sources, build assets that produce returns, and allow money to flow toward you from many directions. This diversifies your security and accelerates your growth, something income alone cannot achieve. Another important distinction is that income is linear, but wealth is exponential. Income increases in predictable steps: an annual raise, a new job, a small bonus. Wealth grows exponentially through compounding, reinvesting, and asset appreciation. What begins as small savings or modest investments can multiply into significant value over years or decades. This is why people who understand wealth focus on consistency and long-term strategy rather than chasing high salaries alone. They value time, patience, and the compounding effect more than the temporary excitement of a larger paycheck. Mindset also plays a powerful role. If you see income as wealth, you may feel comfortable just because you earn well, and that comfort can lead to complacency. You stop learning about investing, you avoid planning for the future, and you assume that everything will continue the same way. But if you understand the difference, you remain strategic. You treat your income as a tool for building something greater, not as an indicator that you have already succeeded. This mindset keeps you growing, learning, and building, even when you feel financially comfortable. Another hidden factor is that income is taxed differently from wealth. Earned income often carries the highest tax burden, while investments, assets, and long-term wealth vehicles can offer significant tax advantages. People who focus on wealth understand this and structure their finances to let their money grow efficiently. People who focus only on income often miss these benefits, losing large portions of their earnings to taxes without realizing there are smarter ways to build and protect their financial base. Wealth also requires resilience, while income requires repetition. You get paid as long as you show up to work or as long as your business generates sales. But wealth grows through learning from mistakes, adjusting strategies, and understanding how to adapt. You will make investing errors, face financial challenges, and experience periods of uncertainty. But each challenge builds your financial intelligence. Income does not teach you resilience, building wealth does. Finally, income is about survival, but wealth is about freedom. Income gives you the ability to manage life's responsibilities. Wealth gives you the ability to choose how you want to live. When you understand this difference, you stop chasing bigger paychecks as the primary goal and instead focus on building assets, skills, and systems that support your long-term visions. Income gives you comfort today, wealth gives you options for the rest of your life. People who build generational money do not rely on luck, sudden windfalls, or temporary success. They create wealth through consistent habits that shape their mindset, behavior, and long-term financial outcomes. These habits are not dramatic or glamorous. They are steady, intentional actions repeated year after year until they form a foundation strong enough to impact not just one lifetime, but many. In your life, adopting these habits means shifting from short-term thinking to a legacy-focused mindset, where every choice is connected to the future you want to create for yourself and those who come after you. One of the foundational habits of people who build generational wealth is understanding the difference between consumption and investment. Many people spend most of their income on things that lose value instantly: driven by emotion, habit, or social pressure. Wealth builders direct their money toward assets that grow, appreciate, or generate income over time. They prioritize real estate, businesses, investments, skills, and relationships that create long-term value. This habit requires patience because the rewards are not immediate, but it is one of the most powerful skills for transforming your financial reality. Over time, the gap between the person who invests and the person who consumes widens until they are living in entirely different financial worlds. Another key habit is financial discipline. People who build generational wealth consistently spend less than they earn, even when their income increases. They resist lifestyle inflation, the tendency to upgrade everything when money grows. Instead, they focus on building a surplus that can be invested. This discipline is not rooted in deprivation, but in clarity. They know that every dollar saved today can multiply tomorrow, and that wise financial choices give them freedom later. Discipline also keeps them grounded. They make decisions based on values and long-term goals rather than impulses or societal expectations. Education is another habit that distinguishes generational wealth builders. They commit to continuous learning, whether through books, courses, mentors, or real-world experience. They understand that knowledge compounds just like money does. The more they learn about financial systems, markets, opportunities, and strategies, the more capable they become of making intelligent decisions. They do not assume they know everything. Instead, they stay curious, open-minded, and willing to improve. This habit protects them from costly mistakes and empowers them to take advantage of opportunities that others overlook or misunderstand. People who build generational wealth also develop the habit of strategic thinking. They plan ahead, anticipate challenges, and think several steps into the future. Where others react to circumstances, they prepare for them. This habit shows up in how they manage money, how they structure their careers, how they build their businesses, and how they raise their families. They set clear financial goals, create systems to support those goals, and review their progress regularly. Strategic thinking turns financial success from a hope into an expectation because they are actively shaping the outcome instead of waiting for it to happen. Another powerful habit is understanding and managing risk. Wealth builders are not reckless, but they are not paralyzed by fear either. They assess risks instead of avoiding them blindly. They diversify their investments, build emergency funds, and seek professional advice when needed. They understand that avoiding all risk leads to missed opportunities, and that smart risk-taking is essential for growth. This balanced approach protects their wealth while allowing it to expand. Over time, their ability to navigate risk becomes a major advantage that others envy but rarely develop. A habit that often goes unnoticed is emotional control. Money triggers strong emotions from fear to excitement to guilt. People who build generational wealth learn to manage these emotions rather than letting emotions control their decisions. They do not panic during market downturns, overspend during moments of stress, or make impulsive financial moves. Emotional control allows them to stay consistent even when circumstances are uncertain. This habit keeps their long-term plans intact even when short-term challenges arise. Another essential habit is building strong networks. Generational wealth is rarely built alone. Wealth builders surround themselves with people who inspire, educate, and challenge them. They form relationships with mentors, entrepreneurs, investors, and other growth-oriented individuals. These connections open doors to opportunities, partnerships, and knowledge they could not access on their own. They also pass this habit on to their children, teaching them how to build relationships that help them succeed. A strong network becomes an invisible asset that grows in value with every new connection. Generational wealth builders also practice intentional parenting and legacy planning. They teach their children about money, discipline, responsibility, and long-term thinking. They involve them in financial conversations, expose them to real-world learning, and equip them with skills that prevent generational wealth from being lost. They understand that money alone does not guarantee a strong future. Knowledge and mindset must be passed down as well. They also create legal structures such as wills, trusts, and financial plans that protect their assets long after they are gone. This habit ensures that their hard work benefits future generations rather than disappearing through mismanagement or lack of planning. Entrepreneurial thinking is another habit common among those who build lasting wealth. They look for ways to create value rather than simply trading time for money. They develop multiple streams of income, build businesses, invest in ideas, and think creatively about how to solve problems. Even if they do not own a traditional business, they apply entrepreneurial principles to their careers, finances, and investments. This mindset makes them more adaptable, resourceful, and resilient in the face of economic changes. They do not depend solely on one job or one source of income. They build systems that generate wealth even when they are not actively working. People who build generational wealth also have the habit of patience. They understand that wealth creation is a slow, steady process. They resist the temptation to chase quick money schemes or shortcuts. Instead, they trust the compounding effect of time, consistency, and smart decisions. This patience gives them the ability to endure setbacks, stay committed, and watch their wealth grow quietly in the background. Over decades, this habit becomes one of their greatest strengths. Finally, the habit that ties all others together is a long-term vision. Wealth builders see beyond the present moment. They picture the life they want to create, the opportunities they want to offer their family, and the legacy they want to leave behind. Every decision becomes a step toward that vision. This clarity gives them purpose, direction, and resilience. It transforms everyday habits into building blocks of generational success. With a long-term vision guiding their actions, they stay focused on what truly matters, and over time, they create wealth that lasts far beyond their own lifetime. Mastering emotional control over finances is one of the most important skills you can develop if you want to build long-term stability, reduce stress, and make confident decisions. Money is not only a practical part of life, it is deeply emotional. It triggers fear, excitement, shame, pride, anxiety, and hope. These emotions influence your actions far more than you may realize. When your emotions drive your financial decisions, you often react instead of thinking, avoid instead of facing reality, or overspend to cope with stress. But when you learn to observe, understand, and manage these emotions, you gain a level of control that changes the entire trajectory of your financial life. Emotional control allows you to make calm decisions during chaos, resist impulsive urges, and build healthier habits that support long-term goals. The first part of mastering emotional control is understanding the emotional patterns you already carry. Every person has an emotional relationship with money that formed long before adulthood. You may have grown up hearing that money is stressful, that it disappears quickly, or that it causes conflict. You may have seen people argue about bills or panic when unexpected expenses appeared. Over time, these early experiences formed emotional associations that still influence how you feel today. For example, if you saw financial instability as a child, you might feel anxious even when your finances are stable as an adult. Or if you were rewarded with gifts or treats, you may use spending as a way to feel comfort or validation. Recognizing these emotional patterns gives you the first step toward changing them. Another important aspect of emotional control involves understanding your triggers. Triggers are situations, stressors, or thoughts that push you toward impulsive financial decisions. You might feel an urge to shop when you're overwhelmed, to avoid your bank account when you embarrassed about past choices, or to make risky decisions when you're frustrated. These responses are not logical, they are emotional reactions. When you learn to identify your triggers in the moment, you gain the power to pause before acting. A pause gives your logical mind a chance to catch up with your emotional reaction. Over time, this simple pause becomes a powerful tool in preventing impulsive financial mistakes. Once you understand your triggers, the next step is learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of reacting to them. Many financial problems come from the avoidance of discomfort. People avoid checking their bank balance because it makes them anxious, or they avoid budgeting because it reminds them of limits, or they avoid planning because it forces them to confront responsibilities. Avoidance always makes financial problems worse. Emotional control means resisting the urge to escape the discomfort and instead allowing yourself to face reality calmly. When you sit with discomfort long enough, it begins to lose its power. You realize that your emotions are valid but not dangerous, and that understanding your finances is far less stressful than avoiding them. Another part of emotional control is learning how to separate your identity from your financial situation. Many people believe that their net worth reflects their self-worth. When they make mistakes, they feel ashamed. When they struggle financially, they believe they are failures. These beliefs create emotional turmoil that makes it difficult to take practical steps forward. Mastering emotional control means recognizing that your financial situation is a set of numbers, not a definition of who you are. You can always learn, grow, and improve. When you stop taking financial setbacks personally, you free yourself to make decisions based on logic instead of insecurity. Developing emotional control also requires setting clear financial boundaries. These boundaries protect you from self-sabotage and emotional impulses. A boundary might be refusing to spend money when you feel stressed, or not making financial decisions when you're emotionally overwhelmed, or limiting the use of credit cards. Without boundaries, your emotions can easily take the lead and push you into decisions that feel good in the moment but harm you later. Boundaries act like a guardrail, keeping you aligned with your long-term plans even when your emotions fluctuate. Practicing mindfulness is another powerful tool. Mindfulness helps you stay present and aware of your thoughts and feelings without acting on them. When you practice mindfulness, you can catch yourself before you fall into emotional spending or avoidance. You begin to notice the sensations in your body, the thoughts running through your mind, and the emotions rising up. Instead of being pulled into them, you observe them. This awareness helps you make calm decisions based on clarity, not emotional noise. Mindfulness also helps you rebuild your relationship with money by reducing stress and making financial tasks feel less overwhelming. Another part of mastering emotional control is developing healthier coping mechanisms. Many people use money to cope with negative emotions, whether by buying things, overeating, gambling, or distracting themselves with entertainment. Instead of relying on financial behaviors to regulate emotions, you learn to use healthier strategies like journaling, deep breathing, physical activity, or talking to someone you trust. When you separate emotional regulation from financial habits, you prevent money from becoming an emotional crutch. This shift dramatically improves both your emotional health and your financial stability. Emotional control also involves building confidence in your ability to make decisions. When you lack confidence, you may feel panic during financial uncertainty or doubt your ability to handle challenges. This leads to hesitation, indecision, or relying on others for guidance. Building confidence comes from educating yourself, practicing financial skills, and making small decisions consistently. Over time, these small actions accumulate and strengthen your belief in your ability to manage your money effectively. When you trust yourself, your emotions lose the power to control your decisions. Another essential element of emotional control is learning how to stay calm during financial ups and downs. Money will always fluctuate. Unexpected expenses will happen, investments will rise and fall, opportunities will come and go. People who lack emotional control often react with panic, anger, or fear when things change, and this leads to poor decisions. Emotional control allows you to stay steady, assess the situation clearly, and take thoughtful action. You learn to focus on long-term progress rather than short-term changes. This emotional stability becomes one of your greatest strengths in building wealth. Finally, mastering emotional control is about creating a financial life built on intentionality rather than impulse. Instead of reacting to the world around you, you make decisions from a place of clarity, stability, and self-awareness. You understand your goals, your triggers, your patterns, and your values. You navigate challenges without losing control and celebrate successes without losing direction. Emotional control gives you the power to build a healthy relationship with money, one that supports your growth, your peace, and your future. Reprogramming your financial identity means reshaping the deep internal story you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, and what is possible for your financial future. Most people try to change their money situation through surface-level tactics like budgeting, saving more, or picking up extra work, but these efforts rarely stick because the underlying identity remains unchanged. Your financial identity is the quiet force that influences every decision you make with money. It guides your habits, your expectations, and the emotional reactions you experience around finances. It is formed over years through experiences, upbringing, social messages, and personal interpretations. If that identity is rooted in fear, scarcity, guilt, or unworthiness, then even the best financial advice will fail to produce long-term transformation. To reprogram your financial identity, you must first understand how the original one was formed. As children, people absorb beliefs about money without questioning them. Maybe you heard that money is always tight, that wanting wealth makes you greedy, or that financial success is for other people, but not for you. These messages plant seeds that grow into limiting assumptions. You may go through life believing you are someone who struggles with money, someone who never gets ahead, or someone who is destined to stay in a certain financial bracket. These beliefs become the script you follow, shaping your decisions and reinforcing your identity through repeated patterns. Understanding this origin is the first step in rewriting it. Your financial identity also develops through emotional experiences. If you ever felt shame around money, struggled with bills, witnessed financial conflict at home, or connected money with stress, those emotions may have implanted beliefs that wealth is unsafe or unattainable. These emotional memories may cause you to subconsciously avoid financial growth. You may undercharge for your work, fear investing, or sabotage opportunities because your identity is still tied to emotional discomfort. Reprogramming requires revisiting these emotional moments, not to judge them, but to understand how they shaped your perceptions. Once you acknowledge them, you free yourself to rewrite the meaning you gave them. Another part of reprogramming your financial identity involves noticing your habitual thoughts. Many people carry internal dialogue that constantly reinforces limitation. You might think that you are bad with money, that financial success requires luck, or that people like you do not become wealthy. These thoughts seem harmless because they feel familiar, but they shape your behavior. When you repeatedly tell yourself a story, your brain adopts it as truth. If the story is negative, you act in ways that align with that negativity. To change your identity, you must begin challenging these automatic thoughts. Question where they came from. Ask whether they support your goals. Replace them with beliefs that encourage growth rather than limit it. One powerful aspect of financial reprogramming is shifting your self-concept from a spender to a builder. Many people identify with surviving financially rather than growing financially. Their actions reflect a mindset of day-to-day management instead of long-term creation. When you reprogram your identity, you begin to see yourself as someone who builds wealth, someone who is capable of handling finances responsibly, someone who can learn the skills needed to create a stable future. This shift in self-concept influences the decisions you make every day. You begin choosing actions that reflect your new identity, learning about money, planning ahead, investing regularly, and treating financial growth as part of who you are rather than something you occasionally attempt. Another critical aspect of reprogramming is aligning your identity with your future rather than your past. Many people define themselves through past failures or old mistakes. If you made poor financial decisions before, you may believe you are bad with money now. If you experienced financial struggle for years, you may still think of yourself as someone stuck in that struggle, but your identity is not determined by your past unless you allow it to be. Reprogramming requires allowing yourself to imagine a future version of you who is financially confident, knowledgeable, and empowered. Begin thinking from the perspective of that future self. Ask yourself how that version of you makes decisions, handles challenges, and invests time and money. The more you connect with this version, the more your identity shifts toward becoming it. Your environment also plays a significant role in shaping your financial identity. If you are surrounded by people who complain about money, fear financial risk, or believe wealth is unattainable, those beliefs influence you. Reprogramming your financial identity means intentionally choosing environments that support growth. Surround yourself with people who think differently, who pursue financial knowledge, who view money without fear or shame. This does not mean abandoning people in your life. It means exposing yourself to new mindsets that challenge your old assumptions. The environment you choose becomes the soil in which your new identity grows. Financial identity is also shaped by how you handle responsibility. Some people see money as overwhelming, complicated, or intimidating, so they avoid dealing with it. This avoidance reinforces an identity of helplessness or incompetence. Reprogramming requires leaning into financial responsibility. Start checking your accounts, organizing your expenses, planning your goals, and learning about wealth building. Each small act of responsibility strengthens the identity of someone who is capable of managing money with confidence. When you consistently act in alignment with capability, your identity gradually transforms into one that reflects empowerment rather than avoidance. Another important element is learning to detach your self-worth from your financial worth. Many people tie their identity to their income, their savings, or their financial status. When money is low, they feel inadequate. When money is high, they feel validated. This creates unstable emotional foundations. To reprogram your financial identity, you must separate who you are from how much money you have. Your worth is inherent, not dictated by your bank account. When your identity is rooted in self-respect and confidence rather than financial fluctuation, you make decisions from strength instead of fear. Consistency is the final key in reprogramming. Identity shifts do not happen overnight. They require repeated action, repeated thought, and repeated reinforcement. Every time you make a choice that aligns with the wealth builder identity, you strengthen its foundation. Eventually, it becomes your new normal. You begin to feel naturally drawn toward financial growth, naturally responsible, naturally confident. Money becomes less intimidating and more manageable because your identity supports the behaviors that create stability. Reprogramming your financial identity is one of the most powerful transformations you can make. It changes how you think, how you act, and how you relate to money. It frees you from the limitations of the past and opens the door to the financial future you want to create. When your identity aligns with abundance, your actions follow, and your financial life begins to change from the inside out. A wealth mindset that never stops growing is not a destination you eventually reach. It is a living, evolving way of thinking that shapes every financial decision you make throughout your life. It is the inner engine that keeps you learning, adapting, and expanding your understanding of money, no matter how much you earn or how successful you become. This mindset is what separates people who build temporary success from those who achieve lasting financial freedom. It is built on curiosity, resilience, discipline, and a deep belief that you can always grow beyond your current circumstances. When you commit to cultivating this type of mindset, your financial potential continues to expand, because your thinking expands right along with it. A growth-driven wealth mindset begins with the understanding that your current knowledge about money is not the final version of what you can learn. Many people reach a certain stage of financial stability and assume they have everything figured out. They rely on old habits, outdated strategies, or a narrow view of how money works. Over time, this stagnation keeps them from recognizing new opportunities, adjusting to economic changes, or improving their financial decisions. In contrast, someone with a continuously expanding mindset knows that financial literacy is a lifelong process. They remain open to new ideas, new tools, new investment strategies, and new ways of creating value. This openness keeps them ahead of others who stop learning after achieving temporary comfort. Another key part of a wealth mindset that never stops growing is the willingness to challenge your old beliefs. You may have inherited ideas about money from your upbringing, your culture, or your past experiences. Some of these beliefs may have served you at one point, but as your goals evolve, those same beliefs may become limitations. For example, you might have learned to prioritize security because you grew up around financial instability. But if this belief stops you from taking calculated risks that could create wealth, it becomes a barrier. A growing wealth mindset requires you to examine and question the financial stories you tell yourself. It pushes you to replace limiting beliefs with empowering ones that match the future you want to create. Another essential aspect is resilience. People who build lasting wealth understand that financial setbacks are not signs to give up. They are lessons, signals, and opportunities to refine their approach. This mindset does not collapse under stress or unexpected challenges. Instead, it adapts. When an investment fails, the person with a growing mindset studies the failure, asks what went wrong, adjusts, and tries again with better insight. This resilience creates compounding wisdom. Over time, each lesson builds upon the last, forming a foundation of experience that becomes more valuable than any single success or failure. The ability to stay committed through ups and downs is one of the most important traits that keeps your financial growth moving forward. A continuously expanding wealth mindset also requires long-term vision. People who grow financially over their entire lifetime think in decades, not days. They understand the power of compounding habits, decisions, and investments. They don't chase quick wins or get distracted by trends that promise overnight results. Instead, they make steady, intentional choices that align with their long-term goals. This perspective helps them avoid impulsive spending, unnecessary debt, or emotional financial decisions. By thinking long-term, they naturally make smarter choices in the present, because everything they do is connected to the future they're building. Another part of a growth-focused wealth mindset is learning to see money as a tool for expansion rather than something to hold on to tightly. When people operate from fear or scarcity, they hoard money, avoid investing, or hesitate to pursue opportunities. This keeps them stuck and prevents growth. In contrast, someone with a wealth mindset uses money to learn, explore, build, and generate more possibilities. They invest in their skills, their health, their relationships, and their future. They understand that money flows toward people who know how to use it wisely, not toward those who cling to it out of fear. A growing wealth mindset is also deeply connected to your environment. The people you surround yourself with influence your thinking more than you may realize. If you spend your life around individuals who complain about money, fear success, or feel threatened by ambition, Their mindset will slowly shape yours. But when you spend time with people who think big, set goals, take risks, and pursue growth, your thoughts begin to expand too. You begin to normalize ambition, discipline, and financial responsibility. You adopt habits, attitudes, and beliefs that match the environment you are in. This is why people who build lifelong wealth intentionally seek out mentors, communities, and relationships that elevate their thinking. The mindset of continuous growth also includes the ability to adapt. The world changes, economies shift, industries evolve, technologies emerge, financial systems transform. A rigid mindset struggles to survive in a changing world, but a flexible mindset thrives. People who never stop growing are not afraid to pivot when needed. They recognize when an old strategy stops working and are willing to explore new approaches. They don't cling to familiarity, they embrace improvement. This adaptability is a major reason why some people continue rising financially while others plateau. Building a wealth mindset that never stops growing also involves a healthy sense of self-worth. You cannot grow financially if you secretly believe you don't deserve success, respect, or abundance. Many people carry subconscious beliefs that limit their ability to receive. They hesitate to negotiate, they underprice their work, or they settle for less because they are uncomfortable claiming what they are worth. When you strengthen your sense of value, you begin to make choices that reflect that value. You pursue better opportunities, set higher standards, and refuse to shrink yourself to fit into environments that no longer match your growth. Another important part of this mindset is the ability to balance patience with action. People who grow their wealth continuously understand that waiting without acting leads nowhere, and acting without patience leads to frustration. They take consistent actions toward their goals, but they do not demand instant results. They plant financial seeds, knowing that time will reward their discipline. This balance protects them from burnout, impulsive decisions, and discouragement. It gives them the stamina to keep growing year after year. Finally, a wealth mindset that never stops growing is rooted in the belief that there is always another level. No matter how much you achieve, there is more to learn, more to build, more to experience, and more ways to create value. This belief does not come from greed, it comes from the understanding that human potential is limitless. Growth is your natural state. Curiosity is your fuel. Expansion is your path. When you adopt this mindset, your financial life becomes a continuous journey of improvement, exploration, and possibility. You stop fearing change and start welcoming it. You stop shrinking from challenges and start using them to grow. You stop settling and start rising. And in doing so, you create a financial future shaped not by chance, but by the mindset you nurture every day. As you reach the end of this audiobook, you have walked through ideas, perspectives, and mental shifts that most people never discover in their entire lives. You have explored the hidden patterns that shape financial behavior, the beliefs that quietly limit potential, and the powerful mindset changes that create freedom, abundance, and long-term stability. But the true value of this journey is not in the information itself, it is in what you choose to do with it. Knowledge becomes transformation only when you apply it consistently, patiently, and intentionally. Wealth is not built in dramatic leaps, but in the small, deliberate steps you take every day, steps guided by a new awareness of how your mind shapes your financial reality. You now understand that wealth is not just a number in a bank account, it is a mindset, an identity, a way of seeing the world that turns obstacles into opportunities and setbacks into lessons. It is the ability to make decisions from a place of clarity rather than fear, to act with purpose instead of reacting to circumstances, and to cultivate habits that support the future you want rather than the patterns you inherited. Every shift you make in your thinking creates a ripple in your actions, and every action builds the foundation of the life you are creating. The process may require courage, discipline, and self-reflection, but each step brings you closer to a reality that aligns with your goals, values, and vision. The truth is that wealth begins internally long before it appears externally. When you upgrade your beliefs, adjust your habits, and reprogram the identity you hold about yourself, financial opportunities begin to expand in ways that may have once seemed unreachable. You start to notice options you overlooked before, build confidence you didn't know you were missing, and step into possibilities you previously doubted you deserved. This inner transformation is what separates temporary success from lasting wealth. It is what turns money into a tool rather than a source of stress, and it is what empowers you to build a future defined not by fear or limitation, but by choice and intention. As you move forward, remember that you are not required to change everything overnight. Growth is a continuous journey, not a single moment. What matters is that you remain aware, stay open to learning, and make decisions that reflect the person you are becoming rather than the person you used to be. You have the ability to break old cycles, escape scarcity thinking, and build habits that support generational strength and stability. The mindset you cultivate from this point on will guide your financial path more powerfully than any strategy or tool. Your thoughts will shape your outcomes, your beliefs will direct your actions, and your identity will determine your wealth. Let this be the moment where you commit to living with intention, to thinking boldly, and to embracing the abundant possibilities ahead of you. The journey to lasting wealth begins within you, and now that you carry the tools and understanding needed to reshape your financial destiny, the path forward is entirely yours to build. Every choice you make from this day on is a brick in the foundation of the future you desire, and with each step you take, you move closer to a life of clarity, confidence, and freedom that continues to grow with you.